Welcome to Colonie TV, the governmental educational channel for the town of Colonie.
My name is Dean. I'm a recovering addict, and this is Inside Addiction. My guest today is Mark Ludholm, 54 years old, 24 years sober. Is that not the best introduction you've ever had?
It's probably the most accurate today that I've had, yeah.
So 24 years sober, very accomplished in your recovery. Let's go back. Tell me how it was growing up.
Big family, a lot of noise, not much privacy, no real memory of having something that belonged to me, mine. That word mine was really, really rare at home. You know, I had my pain, my confusion, my idea of how I'd like it to be instead, but it was such a big family, 5 kids, 2 parents, and always, always, always a lot of motion, action, passion, abuse. You know, back in the 60s, there was a fine line between abuse and discipline, right? So it was confusing and harsh, and they'll use the word dysfunctional now, you know, which is a little clinical. But it got physical, and it got progressively tougher, and it was not the gentlest way to be brought up and educated, and it was a hard place to go after dark. My home. Not blaming any of my stuff on any of my parents either. My 2 parents who raised me. I've had about probably 4 sets of parents since then. The dysfunction continues even into adolescence and stuff. But back when I was a kid, it was hard to figure out what was right and what was wrong, or good and bad. I just know that nothing seemed to work. And it was a very confusing place to grow up. I was the oldest of 5 kids. And to have to be the example of what was working and not make mistakes and that kind of thing. A lot of pressure as a 5 or 7 or 9-year-old kid.
What are some of the memories growing up that really stick out in your mind? Did you play sports? How were you in school? Were you the average kid from a
Overachiever.
Overachiever.
Straight A's. Really good athlete. One of the things I remember in the funny lane of this information highway is you had to eat real fast in my house. You had to eat real fast.
Wait,
Five
siblings,
kids.
you don't eat. You don't eat.
If you don't eat fast, you didn't get full, or you didn't get any, right? Because there was a limited amount of food. I was born and raised in Oakland, California, and we weren't even middle income. It was below that, but man, when the food was on the table, it was like locusts. You went now. Otherwise, the portions were small by the time you got there. If you were slow, you were skinny, right? So there were other memories about how discipline came without warning. I would be mouthy. I was a mouthy kid. I had a lot of confidence because of the academics, because of the athletics. I could do a lot of things as a kid, and I was aware of that. I was cognizant of the fact that I have some juice here, some clout. Didn't know what to do with it. Never saw a good example of what a male adult figure would do with power. So left to guess, I've learned that I'm not a good guesser. I'm not a guesser on the healthy side. So I'd get disciplined a lot, and it would come out of the blue, out of nowhere. It'd be a crack on the skull, or it would be a punch in the side of the head, and just without warning. And it was a lot of injury. We spent a lot of time in the emergency room. my family, the kids, 4 boys, 1 girl. And the girl was untouchable. She did everything right. You know, we hated our sister. And me being no tough guy, I didn't know how to protect myself against what I didn't know was coming as discipline. And so I remember losing a lot of stuff, teeth and toys and opportunity, and I could get, you know, really symbolic here, but loss was common at my house. You know.
First time you used, do you remember in particular?
You know, on the funny side of that question, I used people and excuses and leverage before I ever used any kind of mood-altering chemical, you know. But sugar was a good thing. I would pop a handful of that orange-flavored St. Joseph's aspirin, right? Okay. Just tons of them. I'd eat a whole bottle in the morning. Probably 4, 5. At 7, I started drinking. I remember my dad liked Coors beer. Coors west of the Rockies was very common in California anyway. He was a Coors guy. And
it was a Silver Bullet.
Oh, yeah.
That won't slow you down.
No, yeah. Well, it will slow you down because once you're arrested, the word arrested means stopped all motion. I don't know if you've ever been through that experience, but no, it was Coors back in the day. This is way before Silver Bullet. Man, I got sober before there was dry beer or Zima, right? I never got to try Goldschlager, right? I got gypped. And nowadays, I mean, bath salts, who'd have known, right? I felt dumb when I thought kids would bath salts. I just took a bath, right? I remember 7 years old drinking Coors beer and I blacked out.
How were you introduced to Coors? Through your dad? Like,
yeah.
How did you get the first beer?
My dad drank all the time. Mm-hmm. He drank after church. He drank doing yard work. He drank during the Raiders games. He drank after dinner. He drank before dinner. He drank during dinner. He drank, and to tell you the truth, I never saw him drunk. Not till later. I mean, I ended up working with my dad later and crossing paths with him later. I mean, when I was in my 20s, after he'd already left. He left the house at some point when I was a teenager. And later on, we crossed paths again. I worked for him, actually, in a grocery store. But I never saw him drunk. He just drank all the time. So looking back, I mean, I know what it is now. I'm a little more informed about alcoholism and addiction and what the symptoms are and what the disease comes from. And but having him drink all the time never seemed out of place. Wasn't unusual.
That was the norm.
Yeah. So I thought, well, why wouldn't people drink all the time? My dad does. He doesn't fall down the stairs. He doesn't crash the car into the garage door. He's a little volatile when it comes to his emotional content. I mean, he revs up, ramps up, takes a lot of naps, right? But I never, all of us that's what we did. Mom popped pills and made excuses for Dad when he would light up the room or light up your backside. But it wasn't unusual. That's a confusing thing to a kid. Like, why can't I drink like that? Because he drinks like that. And so but I was introduced through example. And I remember one time sneaking around the corner of the house where he was doing a barbecue and he had all guys. And when guys got together, they talked differently. And they were all drinking beer. And he was telling this foul story. It was a joke, first dirty joke I'd ever heard. And it had a really, expletive-laden punchline. And my dad was a church guy. He sang in a choir and, all this. My mom was there to help with communion and played the organ in church, right? We were a Catholic church family. I was an altar boy, And when he got to the punchline, I was shocked. Like, my dad just said a couple of really, I know these are bad words, right? And I started to giggle. And he heard me. He came around the corner. I thought, oh man, they're gonna have to get a little casket for me, right? And I can take a butt whooping.
At that point,
you'd
already been exposed to him.
Yeah, I can take it, but I thought this is gonna be bad. And he said, what are you doing down there? So I was listening to the joke. He said, come here, and he put me on his knee and he gave me a sip of his beer. And I thought, man, I've arrived. This is it.
Here we are.
Dirty joke. Just the guys drinking beer. why wouldn't I seek that out afterwards on my own to recapture that? I'm not excusing my behavior. It just was a natural progression for me. That's what you do, right? And sure enough, man, I was real popular with the guys, and they shook my hand. These were all church guys that were family men and stuff. But the drinking, the dirty jokes, and I laughed. I was right in place, and I didn't see anything wrong with that either. I continued to do that through all the sports, through all the graduation, through all the classes, through the first year and a half of college, which is all I did. I thought, well, you drink. That's what you do, Along the way, there were other things.
So tell me about the other things. The progression from 7 years old to...
There was weed at 13. There was coke at 16, cocaine at 16. Psychedelics after, my senior year, 18. I was out of the house. Right after I turned 18, I left. And I had a scholarship to college for academics. School was easy for me. Once I hear something, I don't forget it. And I think that was a protective thing growing up. Like if I hear something, I can usually file it away. Once I had to study, I never had to study till college. And then I was a business major with a minor in controlled substances. That's what I say about San Jose State University.
And sure it didn't turn into the major in controlled substances.
My minor became my major. My minor became my major. I dropped my major. I picked up the minor, and I never put it away for like 9 years. But I didn't last very long in college because it was just it was a lot of work. I finally came up against some work and study. And I was making some money selling coke, so why not who needs school, right? So, but there was a progression of depth for narcotics. There's the gentle invitation through pot. Everybody smokes pot, right? Well, no, they don't. Turns out. But back then they did. And continued to drink and alcohol, hard liquor. By that time, I was a Scotch guy, and then a bourbon guy, and then eventually vodka. Vodka's the last stop on the alcoholic train. Until you get to vodka, you're not done.
Well, and then you're not done until it's like Crystal Palace.
Oh, right. And it's if you still have a residence, you can put it in the freezer, right? It's down easier, and it doesn't smell as bad, and you can cover it up. All those things you think, right? But when you're putting vodka on cornflakes in the morning, that's a sign.
It is.
Just so you know.
That could be part of the diagnostic criteria for alcoholism.
I was doing that at 22. Vodka on cornflakes before I went to work at the grocery store to help the old ladies in the produce department. Oh, sorry, ladies. The progression was looking back. It was chronologically connected to the more time I spent on the planet, the more risks I was willing to take. And the less self-esteem or worth or confidence or faith I had in me. It eroded the narcotics, the alcohol. It eroded my confidence to the point where everything I had that I needed to sustain myself was false. So I talked in a false fashion. I acted in a false manner. Relationships I had were started on false foundations. I know it's a common story. You hit bottom and you do this. And
you bring that up, hitting bottom, because it's like I've always struggled with that concept of a bottom, because I think until they throw the dirt on us, I've seen a lot of bottoms that have had trap doors. What are some of the things that I love? You compare, like, there's most people and then there's us. What are some of the things that happened to you and some of the life experiences that go along the lifestyle with addiction, where would be considered bottoms, where addicted, afflicted, convicted?
Emotionally hitting bottom, where I can't really tap into any kind of empathy for another human being. Almost sociopathological. I don't feel remorse. I don't feel sad when you lose a family member. It's just a blink of an eye and on to the next day. I remember being coarse and thick-skinned when it came to anything external to provide some kind of impotence to feel. Didn't have it. Couldn't have. That numb. And that was in my early 20s. And I still hadn't hit bottom yet. Financial bottom, certainly. Becoming the best customer of the coke dealer list of clients I had.
That's one of the 10 crack commandments. Don't get high on your own supply.
Oh yeah, good luck with that. Right. Do you know one of those? Do you know anybody seriously
Not on
who
this
could
stage.
stay away from it?
Not on this stage.
Emotional bottom, financial bottom, spiritual bottom, certainly. Spiritual bottom, that I lost the ability to put other people first in a loving way in my teens. It was about survival, and I'm a feral cat out in the alley just trying to scratch out a place to stay for the day. That's a metaphor, but it wasn't too far off.
But homeless.
I
Eventually
turned
homeless.
out to be homeless at 27 years old. Homeless was it was a choice. Gainful employment, friends and family members, bridges to better living, just turn them all away. Homeless was a choice. I could panhandle. I could take care of myself. I could take a butt whooping. I learned that since I was 3 or 4. Why not do it at 25, right? Or 27 or 28? But the homeless thing now still provides perspective. That wasn't even the bottom, the homeless. That wasn't bottom for me. I finally, October 19th, 1988, I was 29 years old. I put a loaded gun in my mouth and pulled the trigger. I was tired. I was about 120 pounds. I couldn't keep my hands from shaking, and I used to blame it on the cold because it's October in Northern California. You know, it's like 68. We had to wear a sweater, right? I'm being facetious, but I knew it was DTs, right? I was become the alcoholic that without them, you're going to go into seizure if you don't kind of anesthetize yourself first thing in the morning. Coming to, I'm shaking. It's not because I'm cold. I used to blame it on the cold, but it wasn't. My body's saying, "You're on thin ice here, bud." And a lot of this was explained to me later because there's a fog you go through that. Oh yeah, that made sense. Or somebody will click something back. Or I don't have repressed memories, not even from childhood or abuse or anything. But sometimes somebody will say something. Even now at 54, I'll go, "You know what? I remember that," and it's 30 years ago. But I wouldn't have remembered it on my own, you know. So to quicken this up, the homeless wasn't even the bottom. The gun in the mouth, and it didn't go off. The gun jammed, and I remember thinking, I suck at everything, man. I am so unsuccessful. This is humbling and embarrassing. That night, probably 2 in the morning, I remember it was before midnight, that particular gun in the mouth thing. Because I remember walking into the emergency room of the psych hospital that was a few blocks away, and checking myself in because I just didn't want to die. I didn't want to die, but I had no idea what to do to live that next day. So I was in the psych ward for a couple days. They kicked me after 48 hours observation. I went into treatment that next morning, and I've been clean ever since. October 20th, 1988. And it wasn't through my own doing that I'm clean. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff that was leading to relapse and old behavior, you know, with new opportunity kind of thing. And I'm lucky I'm still here without having to say I've relapsed or gone back to jail or anything. I've been back to jail or prison over 500 times in the last 20 plus years, but it's by design, and I'll go talk to them. Inmates, share something, right, or be invited to do a show. But now every once in a while I'll see something current that kicks me back to those days where the bottom was getting, you know, worse and worse. And to be honest with you, a lot of addicts I know are so creative that if they hit bottom and they're not satisfied with being done yet, they'll dig a new one. We'll literally dig a new one. We're that talented and possessed with instinct to survive and thrive on losing. You know? I've
always thought where, you know, normal people would be like, can't get much worse than this.
Yeah.
And with an addict, I'm thinking, oh, just give it a couple minutes. Give it a couple minutes. It will.
Can't get much worse just because I don't want it to. Oh, you want it to? Watch this, right? And normal for me means most. You know, most people wouldn't be able to answer this question. What's the maximum sentence on a second-degree B&E, right? Normal people go, excuse me? You're looking at me like, well, what county? You know, do I have any priors?
You got a prior record?
Exactly.
You got a public defender, or you're paying for the attorney?
Right, exactly. Let's see, who's the judge? Right, you know? So that stuff's all, it's behavior, and there's only the 2 groups I'm familiar with, normal and the rest of us. I'll give you an example. I was driving through Houston, Texas in somebody else's car. It was a hospital administrator I was working for that day. I was going to talk to his clients at this treatment center. And he said, listen, I'm embarrassed to take you this way, but it's the quickest way to the hospital. We got a homeless problem here in Houston, you know. And I said, oh, you know, and I was a homeless guy. So we drive, it's about 11:30 in the morning, and we drive under these huge, Houston has these huge overpasses. You know, they have these throughways and expressways, huge overpasses for the highways up above. So we drive under, and it's great shelter, you know, out of the thunderstorms and everything. This is like summer. And out of the wind and thunderstorms that hit Houston occasionally, and huge banks of overpass, these homeless laying in bags, just, you know. And he says, we got a lot of homeless problem. He says, I'm a little embarrassed about it. It's my town. I like it. And he said, sometimes I wish they'd just lock them all up. You know, he was a normal guy, this guy driving. My first thought was, damn, they sleep late. These guys, what are you doing? Laying around, you got panhandling to do. No wonder there's no soup at the kitchen by the time you get in line.
They're already in a blackout.
Yeah, I know, right? It's 11:30 and then in the morning. I'm thinking, you got to get up early, chicken neck. You got to go get your issue, right? And I started laughing. He goes, what's so funny? I go, it's just, you know, just thinking. That was it. I didn't know him well enough to out myself with, you know, that they sleep late, right? So every once in a while I'm still reminded of the humble beginnings or the early beginnings of what was really an invitation to become healthier or more normal in behavior, even though I have the mentality still of first thought wrong, next thought worse, third thought criminal, fourth thought petty, fifth thought arrogant, sixth self-centered. Nothing healthy yet. 6 thoughts into it, I got no good ones. It's how I'm wired.
24 years into your recovery process, I can't imagine any emotion, happy, sad, glad, mad, that you haven't experienced, loss in that period. Has there ever been a point where you really feel as your recovery has been challenged?
Oh, yeah. Emotionally? Yeah.
And how did you get through it?
Well, that's the secret for me. You don't get through it if you don't get through it. You got to go through it. Without attraction to distraction, without escapism where there's no return. You can't avoid it. You either deal with feelings or they deal with you. And that's the secret for me, is that most of my triggers for relapse or relapse behavior or relapse, you know, that invitation to come back and do something easier than life makes it. I mean, chemicals are easy. You know, they'll fix your central nervous system quick. I mean, you want to send yourself into kind of opiate, you know, sleep mode? Okay, just shoot some dope, right? Or you can do a good hard day's work and get tired after dinner and go sleep. But one takes longer than the other. And I don't like to wait for stuff, especially feeling better. So my trigger for relapse is usually anger. I'm an anger-based male, either from deprivation or resentment or no resolution of some kind of insecurity that I have, or fear in the financial market, or I mean, it all leads to anger for me. I'm very hesitant to say, you know, I'm in a lot of fear right now in my life.
Makes you vulnerable.
Well, yeah, it also makes me want to vomit. But I'm teasing you. It makes me giggle a little bit because it's so unlike the males in my family and the patterns I have and the people we grew up. You just didn't say, you know, I'm in a lot of fear right now. In jail, your second night in jail. Hey guys, listen, I've been sitting here a couple days and I know I'm the new guy, but I'm in a lot of fear in the. I just wanted to put that out there for you.
Open a cell party in mind.
No, it's so foreign. Fear is a foreign language. So anger is easier to present, and it's much more respected. So your question being, have I ever felt like I'm leaning towards relapse emotionally? Only about 1,000 times. What level of relapse or how close I got had to do with early or long-term recovery. Early recovery, I'm a lot more flinty and thin-skinned and brittle, you know. Now, I got a little bit of time under my belt to the point where I can rationalize in a healthy way. Yeah, you get angry and then what? Say this and then what? Do that and then what, right? Okay, Well, what do you got to lose? Well, I got a lot now. I got a lifestyle I really enjoy. I got family who love and adore me. I got people who hire me like that, and I don't want to make them look bad. I got a kid who looks up to me. He's 6. I'm an example to him. You got a lot to lose.
And you've gained a lot. You've lost a lot. You've gained a lot. We're going to show a clip because now you make a living almost off of, putting yourself out there. And I've seen your shows 3 times now. And it's been all 3 different shows because obviously, sometimes we remember different stuff.
Yeah.
Can't remember that. And then there's no shortage of stuff to talk about in our life and our process and our recovery. We're going to show a clip of your performance. You've been on Showtime, Comedy Central, A&E, all 50 states. Traveled around the world. You had a Broadway show that was playing in London. My understanding, you performed for the past 6 presidents.
I've met them. I've met the last 6.
Met the last 6
performed
presidents.
For 3.
That's a long way from
Homeless under the bridge, 120-pound with long hair and foul mouth. Yeah. The Secret Service, they don't mind me right now. They don't mind.
What is something, the advice, before we show the clip and end the show, of someone that's out there, because we know, unfortunately, there's still so many people sick and suffering.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to somebody that's sick and suffering, that's perhaps experienced homelessness, loss, ended marriages, trauma, abuse, emotional, physical, sexual, mental?
Yeah.
What advice?
Stop fighting. The resistance to the force of nature that you're suffering from. Force of nature. This disease doesn't care about IQ, heart, willpower, zip code, finances, romances, circumstances. It doesn't care. It's a tornado. You can't outthink it, outbuy it. You can't run away from it. You have to move out of the way. You have to be humble enough to move out of the way, and you do have a choice. There are places to go. There are calls to make. There are people who will help. There's 2 of them sitting right here. You do have a choice.
Addiction is addiction. Working, shopping, jogging, smoking, blogging, smoking while blogging and jogging. Nothing says immediate gratification like Facebook. Yeah. Friend request, confirm. The opposite of a workaholic would be a golfer. Hit it, go get it. Golf's not a sport, it's an abusive relationship. People, for me, coffee's serious. I go into a Starbucks, give daddy what he needs, bean whore. I was in a Seattle Starbucks in line behind a woman who ordered a triple decaf. Lady, when I was in school, 3 times 0 was f***ing 0. Food addiction is tougher to deal with because food is sort of necessary, really. You never go to an Overeaters Anonymous meeting and hear, "Hi, my name's Joanne, and I've gone 6 years now with no food."
Welcome to Colonie TV, the governmental educational channel for the town of Colonie.